All right, so again, we're going to do two things here, the Chapter 6 test review, and then we're going to, I'm going to give everybody a hard copy of the final portfolio project specifications, including the rubric, how it's going to be graded, etc. All right? And 15 points of that is putting it onto the Rankin server. And I'm responsible for showing you how to do that. All right? So hopefully we'll all be able to do that without any problems, and that'll be a 15 you'll all have in the bag. So question one, again, should a programmer validate on the client, the server, or both? Why? The answer is both. If you validate on the client, as it says, it reduces load on the server. The server then doesn't have to go through and do extra work. All right? But as it says, it is possible for a person to disable JavaScript. Everybody have that one? Okay. Number two. It's pretty easy. Modern browsers create a collection of form objects. This is one of those questions, I believe, that's the multiple choice. You know, which one of these is the right format? So make sure you say document.forms and then in brackets 0. All right? That is a way that you can refer to a form in using array notation.
You mentioned the other way where it was like document and then get out and
Yes.
last name. Was that also
That won't be in there as one of the choices, I don't believe. All right, number three, is it possible to do client-side scripting without the use of JavaScript? Yes, and you already knew that. HTML5 offers some validation that you can use. Again, things like required, number, placeholder, etc. Remember too, this isn't on your test, but you should know this, that as an example, remember that one of the other things that you can put in other than number is you can say type equal TEL for telephone. All right, the problem with that is most browsers still don't support that. So even if you say that a field is type telephone, TEL, you can still put letters in there and all sorts of other stuff. All right. So if we wanted, I'm not going to type this, but we could even put HTML5 offers limited validation, because you cannot totally validate just using HTML5. All right, number four. How do you check, I guess one of these is in there at least, if the option button is selected? That's the checked property. Remember, if you say checked, okay, it used to be, back in the olden days, like about 5 years ago, you had to say checked equal checked. But they thought that was kind of stupid. Or you had to say selected equals selected. You don't have to anymore. This means it's an empty list. All right, if the selected index is set equal to -1, nothing has been selected. And what is a selection list? As it says, it's a form element that gives you limited user options. Bless you. Number 5. What event fires when a form is submitted? No rocket science. The submit event. When is a form submitted? Or how can you? This we didn't even talk about. I wish I would have, but I guess I forgot to. If you use prevent default, you can use that to keep the default thing from happening. The default thing that happens when you press the submit button is you try to submit the form, correct? All right. The reason that this right here, the reason that is used a lot, that prevent default, is you can put prevent default in if you want to set it up so that for some reason you're showing a hyperlink on a form, but when the user clicks it, you don't want them to go anywhere. You see what I'm saying? So that's preventing the default operation from happening. You know, when you click a hyperlink, by default, if it's underlined, it should go to, or at least attempt to go to that site. All right, but if you use a prevent default, that's a way to keep that from happening. Oops. What is used for usability? We went over that again today, the placeholder element. Number 7, which is used if you want to copy one text field to another. We're starting to do this already. We're using that value element. You're going to see that more tomorrow. Number 8, if you want to toggle off form validation, you use the no validate attribute. Number 9, what type of an input element triggers validation? This is one of those, I believe it's a multiple choice on there. So please just remember that's the one. You've seen this already. We've already done stuff like this already. All right. For instance, you know, on the thing we just did with that tuba thing that was a couple chapters ago, you had to put in months, and they had to be between 1 and 12. That was the number attribute that was used in there. Number 10, and again, this was another thing I guess I probably didn't even go into, but these are built-in CSS pseudo classes. They're like hover that we've looked at before and visited and all those other goodies. So we've looked at some of that stuff before. But these are for changing form element properties. Colon invalid and colon valid. Number 11, it's one that you all know pretty well by now, is NaN. And I don't remember, just so you know, I don't remember, this might be one of the ones that's the short answer. And please put it in the right caseness. Just get used to doing it the right way all the time. The N, both N's are uppercase for not and for number. Again, that's no surprise to anybody in here. We've looked at this before. Number 12, when the value of a control is found to be invalid, during form validation, it triggers an invalid event. What I'm going to show you tomorrow, by and large, is like they did at the end of the chapter, we're going to just write our own custom events. That's normally what's done, rather than using some of the built-in things that come to you in JavaScript. Number 13, what form element is not allowed in the strict DTD, which stands for document type definition, and it's the name element. Number 14, what is validation? This is taken right from the book. So I know it's kind of long. Does everybody have that? All right. Number 15, what's an empty string? You know it's something that's enclosed in either just double quotes or single quotes, no spaces. And again, as it says, it's often used as a string default value. And when we get done with this, I'll go to the last page, which is all the definitions. And the last one, again, the definitions. I'll leave the first several of them up there. And while you start doing that, I'm going to pass this out. Again, these are the requirements for the final portfolio project. Kind of funny, as you get older, you appreciate things like projectors being in focus. It's just nice. Does everyone have bubble and validation so I can move past the first two? Just those two. Bubble and validation. Got all those? I think when we get down to there, yeah, there's still a lot of them. So again, tomorrow we'll do two things. When you first come in here, I'm going to go through two examples of validating forms using JavaScript with you. And then after that, I'm going to pass back the test, and I'm going to go over how I did the second problem. In fact, maybe I'll go over how I did it, and then I'll pass back the test. Does everyone have these two, constraint validation and is NaN? So I'll move it down a little bit more. You've all got those? All right, does anybody need any of those, you missed one or anything? Everybody's finished then? You got it all? Good. So remember, we are sticking to this now. We did the DOM stuff yesterday. We did the written test today. We did the lecture on Chapter 6 today and the test review, and we're going to spend just a couple minutes going over this piece of paper. And tomorrow we've got the form examples and go over the hands-on test. All right. Next Monday, since we've got a short week this week, next Monday will be a lab. Tuesday will be the written test for Chapter 6 rather. Wednesday will be the hands-on. Thursday, so by the time we get through next weekend, we'll be through Chapter 7. All right, and then the following week, we've got Chapter 8 and a lab day, and then the last hands-on. And then we finish up with 7 days for your portfolio. Again, hopefully there'll be plenty of time that even if you don't have a lot of time to work on it outside of here, you'll be able to get it done. So let's talk about that.
There's no written for the Chapter 8.
Isn't there one shown on there?
I just said Chapter 7. I just want to make sure. There's written test for Chapter 7.
Written test chapter. Oh, that was here. Lecture Chapter 7. Hands-on Chapter 7 and 8. Oh, that's a good question. I guess we'll have to have it here. You would have gotten it, believe me. So. I'm hoping that you're looking at those written tests as a chance for you to put up some points.
Right.
Now, granted, some of you have struggled with some of the tests, and I'm not saying they're always easy. If you saw it, literally, I go through the tests, and I pull out questions that I think are too difficult. All right? All right, so again, let's take a look at the requirements. You got it right in front of you, and I'm just going to go over the sheet. I'm not going to read it to you, but it is a combination of Bootstrap. If you want to, we used Bootstrap 3.3.1 or something like that in class. Bootstrap 4 is out. You can go out to getbootstrap.com, and there is an alpha version of that out there. If you want to use that, you can. All right. But you're going to use that with a combination of the HTML5, CSS3, and JavaScript that you already know. Again, this is a professional. All right, I probably should have put that in there. It is a professional web portfolio. All right, every page should be validated. You should use media queries. All right. You should follow mobile guidelines. That's all stuff that has been in your book. We've gone over it at one time or another. You should use accessibility guidelines. I guess I put professionalism here, but you get the idea. I guess so I can pull that out of there. All right. But part of your grade is going to be based on how professional it is. Again, in an ideal world, I'd be able to take each one of these, and if I had somebody contact me saying, I'd like to have one of your students or one or more of your students do some work this summer, do you have an example of their work? Then what I could do is I could say, you can go out to iwt.rankin.edu, and afterwards you can put in, E. Wilson or whatever it happens to be, and you can look at each one of them and then make your own mind up as far as what you'd like to do. They must render correctly in each browser. And what does that mean? That means that they should show in every browser. They may look a little different. All right. IE looks a little different than Firefox. It looks a little different than Chrome. All right. I still have to. Evan Gate has got some things out here. Show you this. I don't know if you probably don't care, but he uses Google Drive. And somewhere on here, set up website in FTP for students V3. I think that's the one that he did. So I have to go through all these steps. I don't mind. Hopefully it'll work a little. He said he streamlined it a little bit from what I had to do earlier. So, all right. So 15 points of that is basically just getting it up and running on the internet. Again, I know that a couple of you had problems last semester. I'm still not sure what the problems were, but since that site was hacked and has been re-put up, hopefully no one will have any problems with it. If for some reason we go through all the steps and yours still won't publish, I'll go and I'll send it to Evan and I'll ask him if he knows why. If he doesn't know why, I wouldn't take off for that. If it's something beyond my control or his control, I wouldn't take off for that. All right. So at a minimum, you're going to have 5 pages. A home page, index.html. Start using the right names for this. That should be index.html. That's typically about.html. That's typically contact.html. That's typically portfolio.html, and that might be resume.html. But you should use names that make sense. You never know that remember that anyone can take your website after they go up to iwt.rankin.edu, right mouse click on it, and do a show view source. And if they do that and you're using goofy names or whatever, that's how you'll be remembered. All right? And I'm not just saying that, that's how it is. I remember years ago, and maybe I told you about this, probably not, but the first programming class that I took, the last program that we had to do, and it was a little bit more complex. And we had to go and put all this stuff into it. And at the time, the language that we were using, they had go-tos and stuff in it. Not good programming practice, but stuff that you could do. And the night before, I mean, it was hard. They left the campus open the whole night before, and a lot of us were in there almost all night. But these guys were writing goofy stuff. It was back in the days where you're all probably even too young to even know about this, but for like Coca-Cola, one of their things was Coke is it. And they had like go to Coke is it. You know, it was stuff like that. It was just silly because people were tired. And I'm not making this up. The teacher failed everybody who did that. Because he said, I'm teaching you to be professionals. And if you can't be professionals, you don't deserve to pass. I was glad I didn't do that. I didn't come up with the best names, but I didn't use anything like that. On the other end of the spectrum, a friend of mine who now is a vice president of a major telecommunications company in Madison. If I didn't get the job here, I was probably going to contact him and see if there was something I could do for him. I mean, he makes between $250,000 and $1 million a year. All right, but with him, he had all these things where, and I wrote the code with him. But these pages, if they ever come up, the pages are basically they're all labeled FU, and then he's got different numbers by them. They should never come up, but if they do, and he uses F-bombs like you wouldn't believe. But I even asked him about that when I heard he was leaving. I said, "You want to clean up that code?" He's like, "No, it'll never get hit, and if it does, that'll be my legacy." Oh, okay, that's what you want. But I'm going to look at all that stuff. I will do a view source. I will look at all of your code. All right? And sometimes when I say that, people think, "Well, you're threatening us." No, I'm promising you that. All right? I'm telling you in advance how these are going to be graded. All right, you got to use Bootstrap. We've already talked about that. That's 25 points. I'm not, you might struggle with that. All right? But I gave you a couple resources the other day that you might be able to use for that too. There should be no broken links. There should be no missing images. Again, what am I going to look at? Well, if you have, let's say that you put some kind of a slideshow on it, a very simple slideshow. The picture shouldn't be where one is real big and then the next one's real little, then another real big one, then you know what I'm saying? The stuff should be relatively the same size. That goes into the idea of professionalism. If you've got a logo, all right, even your color choices, you shouldn't take two colors that don't go together. Or you shouldn't take two colors, a color for your text and a color for your background, that are so close in color that it's real hard to discern the difference between them. No. Include an image of yourself on the home page. This is what Evan wanted. And a working contact form, ideally that can send email on your contact page. You might have to look as far as how to do that. Now that's one where if you get it all working but you have a problem with the email, I'll probably be very lax in the way I grade that, but the rest of it. All right? I mean, everybody in here has got a camera, my guess has got a phone. Just point it at yourself, take a picture, and again, within good taste. All right, so the portfolio page, so what you're gonna have when you look at it with these pages that we said you've got in here, so you're gonna have your home page, all right? Index, well, let's just say that on your menu you've got home written down there, all right? Then after home, let's assume you do it in this order. You'll have an about page. After the about page, you'll have a resume page. Now with that resume page, if it's easier for you, you don't have to put the resume right there. You can link to a PDF, for example, if it looks better to do that. You can put it there. I've given out stuff like this before where I've had people create their resumes in HTML. If you want to do that, you can. All right? All right. Contact, which will have your form on it. And then finally, portfolio. If you decide you'd rather have contact at the end, and portfolio between it, that's okay. Now under this portfolio, this is going to have links underneath it because this will have examples of your HTML, this will have examples of your CSS, this will have examples of your JavaScript. So you may have to go and take a look at how to do a submenu, you know, a menu within a menu. Because this is going to have portfolio, that'll be a menu option, then this will be, underneath it, it'll have three submenus, these three. And these are going to have different things under it because those are going to be the examples of your work. Does all that make sense? So you may have to go out and do some investigatory work on your own. All right, again, hopefully you were all here last week, and if you weren't, I emailed all of you like that boot swatch. If you want to use a theme from there or something like that, then you don't have to worry so much about colors. So there's a lot of ways that you can do this and you can make it easier on yourself. All right. If Drew says, no, I'd rather do it all on my own, use my own colors, my own, that's fine too. As long as you keep that idea, that act of professionalism in it. Yes?
Is it required to submenu portfolio, or if it was professional, can it all be on one page?
No, I don't want it all on one page. All right? I let a couple of you do that for your midterm, but no, it really, I know it's easier to do it that way, but it's gonna get really long.
I guess I just never figured because I was one of those people, like, I couldn't figure out our research. I don't understand how to do the drop menu, like, without messing everything up. That's what, because I was one of those people.
Okay,
that
then
never
I'll
figured
see if I can put something out there.
Yeah.
All right. You might have to remind me of that so I don't forget, but I'll try to remember to do something like that. So again, from your HTML, all right, you want examples of your CSS. You can link to that Bootstrap lab we did as a class, if you remember that. It was that scene from the Wild West, all right? And a link to your midterm. Now what that might mean is, you know, in all seriousness, you might have to clean up your midterm, all right? Because again, a prospective employer is going to be looking at this. I mean, I'm guaranteeing you that that's going to happen. If nothing else, I'm going to make sure that when we have our next advisory committee meeting, all right, that I either get to speak or I get to at least either me and or Evan gets to tell people who are at that meeting, hey, if you want to see examples of some of the work of our students, we're going to show them how to get there. And then from the JavaScript, link to code examples, at least one from every chapter. Yeah, that's a little bit of work. I understand that. All right. Are there any questions on any of that stuff? As you go through it, if you have questions, then just come up and ask. Yes?
So you said links and like code examples. Do you want like the actual code examples to be on that page?
That's up to you as far as how you do that.
So just links would work.
You can link, and you can link and bring it up in a new window.
Okay, that's
All right. You can do it whatever way you want. I mean, what I've done in the past is, I'll have the drop down and I'll put the CSS or the JavaScript rather right in there, so you can do it either way. But again, it should be professional. I mean, if you look at it, you keep opening all these windows, or you'll know when you run it yourself whether or not it looks professional. And the good litmus test is, this doesn't seem right. Then it probably isn't. Because if it doesn't seem right to you, I think there's a real good chance it won't seem right to the person who's looking at it. All right? All right, so the rest of the period is yours. And again, last time, tomorrow then, form examples and going over the second example of the test. All right? And I'm going to start right on time, so we're going to start. I hope they have both those form examples done literally by 9. Give you a quick break, and then in around 15 minutes or so, go over example, or the second hot example, and then the rest of the period then is for you to just get your work done. All right, because it's the last day before the break, so I want to give you some time to work.